All right, guys, we are live and jumping on board. Excited to chat with you all. So, as soon as you come in to the chat room, just please let me know if you can see me and that you can hear me okay. You can just let me know by tapping in the little chat room here, and that would be awesome. That way, I know you guys are there. You can hear me. Everything's cool, and then we'll get started. So excited to be here on a Saturday afternoon. Scott, good to have you. Doug, see and hear you. Christian, yay. Me too, Christian. Me too. Hi from Ireland. Ireland. Dave. That's awesome. Ireland is like so near and dear to my heart. My wife and I went there for a honeymoon. We stayed in Avoca. So I don't know where you're at near there. Daniel, Brandon, Kenneth. Good to see you guys. Thank you for jumping on board. Sounds good. Awesome. I'm glad you guys are able to join us. For those of you who are new to our live Q&As, I would love to just let me know if this is the first time you've ever been able to jump into one of our live Q&As here as a PD Academy member. Maybe you're trying this out for free and you haven't been on one yet. So let me know. Just let me know in the chat. Say, hey man, it's first time for me, and I just want to welcome you. Excited to have you on board. Looking forward to so many amazing things that I'm going to be sharing with you in a little bit about what's on the horizon for Beat Academy. So, Mark, first timer, great to have you on board. Kenneth, Nora, I'm so excited for you guys. And as you might have noticed, if you haven't had the chance to check out some of the previous live calls, the format is pretty simple. We had you guys the opportunity to ask questions beforehand, and I've got my amazing team, my live Q&A call ninjas with me, so they're going to help me facilitate. But we had the opportunity for you guys to ask questions beforehand, and I'm going to do my best to answer them. And then we're going to open up the floor for you guys to ask questions in real time, and we'll just chat and we'll just keep moving that way. So guys, we'll just give maybe like 2 more minutes for people to just come on in, and let me know once again if you're just coming in and this is your first time in one of our live calls. Would love to just say hello to you. So how's everyone doing? And how's everyone vibing with the site so far? Been a lot of awesome things happening and a lot of more cool, awesome stuff going on in the works. So let's see here. What do we got? All right. Daniel, Christian. Okay, guys. So we'll get started in about 2 minutes. So as you might have, as you're awesome. So as you start working your way inside, if just go ahead and just think about some questions that you would like to ask, and just marinate it on a little bit. If you want, just write it down, type it down somewhere, and then later on, we're going to give you guys the opportunity to ask those questions, and we'll just get started, get the party started. So first, let me just share a little news about what's going on in the Beat Academy community, what's happening, what I've been up to. Currently, I've just been completely swamped. I'm like in the middle of 4 projects. I'm wrapping up scoring a video game with Ubisoft. This is actually the first time I've actually been on board with the team to score in-game music. It's always usually been like music for the game by licensing. So this is really cool, and I'm really excited about that. And I'm going to share a little bit more about that journey if you guys are interested in that kind of stuff down the road. But yeah, so I've been in the middle of that, wrapping up some artist projects that I've been working on. And I just literally finished filming and putting together the mixing course. So we've got the mixing course all done, and we're ready to go. And I'm really, really excited. Like, I think it's almost 3 hours long. I really kind of went a little too crazy on this mixing course. So if you've ever watched the mixing course I did a long time ago, completely renovated, updated, more in depth, and I walk you every step of the process of mixing a record that I've produced. Now, the point of this mixing course in particular is not coming from a mixing engineer standpoint, not like, hey, I want to become a mixing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm tailoring this course specifically for those of you who are creating your own music and you're caught in this demo-itis bubble. You're caught in this bubble of like, I've been listening to my beats or my song for so long, and I'm just kind of frazzled as to where to go and how to mix this and how to approach. So it's more of that approach of mixing stuff that you're creating yourself and passing the baton over to get over that next hurdle. So so that's what's going on with that course. I'm excited about that. And we have some guests already confirmed to do some breakdowns of some of their amazing music. So I'm really excited about that. And we have another course down the road coming up, and that's going to be featuring more about the pragmatic business side of things and how do you actually make a living from your music. So we're going to be talking about that, and that's going to be, of course, full details about that. So excited about that. Let me know if you guys are excited as well. If anything I mentioned is something that you're looking forward to jumping on. So let me know in the little chat row while I drink some Flanagan's water. Doug says, just what I need. Great. Mark, thank you. Mark, woohoo. I think that's what you would sound like too, Mark. Woohoo. So Brian, Doug, absolutely all of that. Kristen, Jairus, awesome. Awesome. And I noticed somebody put a question there, but just hold your questions. I'm going to let you know for sure when it's time for you guys to just bombard me with questions. And I've got a team on board. So they're going to help moderate, making sure that I leave no stone unturned. So Daddy, good to have you on board. So here's what I wanted to talk about for just about 5 minutes. I'm going to answer the forum questions afterwards, but I wanted to talk about something that that's been on my mind and my heart, and this is particularly aimed towards artists who are, and I've been there too. This is a situation where you're kind of stuck in this position of, I don't really know how to find my sound, or I don't really know yet who I am as an artist. And so there might be some of you in this or watching this in the future, whenever you decide to watch this, and you're like, well, I'm pretty confident in who I am as an artist and what direction I should be heading into. So even, and I want to encourage you, I want to even challenge you by hearing what I'm going to be sharing. This might also get you to reevaluate where you're currently at, and it can help kind of shift you in the direction of where you should take your next step. So so what I wanted to talk about was something that I harped on a little bit on the songwriting course, and that's the artist DNA. And that's this concept of, figuring out who you are as an artist, tapping into what lane are you carving for yourself, and then focusing in all the energy and effort towards that direction, because that is what's going to bring you really that's what's going to head into the most momentum for you as an artist. And one of the most troubling things as any artist will come across is I don't really know where to go, or I don't really feel confident yet with myself as an artist. So artist DNA is broken down like this. The artist DNA is like 3 strands that really help define where you should be positioning yourself as an artist. So the influence, and what we talk about that is influence versus inspiration. Those are 2 different things. So I'll ask a lot of people, what does your music sound like? And the typical response to that question is, oh, well, if you were to combine hardcore polka with a little bit of like reggae mixed with some dubstep, that's what I sound like. And I'm like, wow, what does that sound like? I have no idea. And what that does is it puts a tremendous burden on the person you're speaking to, or the person, to figure that out for themselves. But if you approach it as, well, listen, if you're a fan of Jay-Z, Nas, and Mos Def, then you'll love what I'm doing. And what that does, it really clarifies to me, knowing, oh, I get that. I'm a Mos Def fan. I love Nas, so I love those 2 already. So I'm already inching towards wanting to hear and liking and connecting with you already as a listener to the artist. Does that make sense? You can let me know in the chat if that makes sense. And where I'm getting at with this is, narrow down your scope of influence. Who or what artists are influencing you? And what I mean by that is get a list. If you haven't done this already, get a list and write down the top 10 and then narrow it down to really the top 3, right? So I want you to break it down in a sense where it's like, these are the top 3 artists that have influenced me the most. Now, doesn't mean that you're going to sound exactly like them. This just means that these artists have left a huge impact and an imprint towards your inspiration for pursuing music. And that's a big thing because they're ultimately going to be a reference in the back of your mind, in your heart, when you're in the creative process. It's like, you know, for me, it would be like, I'll never forget the day I heard The Prodigy, the electronic music group. And I was like, wow, I was blown away. They had such a big impact. And so I come with that frame of mind a lot of times when I'm making my music. And your music matures, your music making process matures down the line. But what this is going to do is this is going to give you a narrow focus. And what it allows you to do is to say, okay, these are my 3 artists that have influenced me the most. And what that's going to do is that's going to narrow the vision, the lane, so that I'm not spending time, if I am doing hip hop, and if my 3 biggest artists are Jay-Z, Mos Def, and Nas, I'm not going to spend time trying to do a rock record. I'm not going to spend time or stretch myself thinking, well, I'll try and dabble in making deep house or progressive house just because somebody's asking me to do it and I can get production points on stuff. You're actually going to be hurting yourself in the long run because you really want to master that lane that you want to be in. So that's the first foundation of the artist DNA, okay? And then once you move towards that, you can start to figure out where people are living in a space that also consume that same those same type of artists. So if you enter in a room and you have something to say, something to share, and everybody in that room doesn't resonate with what you have to say, it falls on deaf ears. But if you step into a room where everybody in that room resonates with what you have to say, you get the most attention drawn to you. So that is your fan avatar. That is where you come into the position of realizing, who does my fan look like? What does he or she look like? Where does he or she listen to? Where do they shop? Where do they go? What's the vibe that I'm looking for? And that's going to help you even narrow down what kind of message, who it is that's going to be hearing the message you have behind your music, even if you're producing electronic instrumentals. So that's something to consider. And with that, and I'll extrapolate a little bit more on that down the line with the course that's going to really touch a lot on this. And then the third part of your artist DNA to really help you focus in on where you should be going with your music would be your brand lifeline. And what I mean by that is, you're artists and you're not vending machines that are just spewing out music. So you want to create a system where you have other lanes that are tapping into who you are as an artist. People want to connect with you, not just come to you and have you beat them over the head with your music. So you want to be able to have 2 other lanes that you connect. So if you're a fan of, football, and you like photography, then you want to broadcast probably a little bit of that as well on your social media platforms and let people know and give them a window into that side of your life too. Because then if they resonate with that, they connect with that, there's a stronger connection made with you. So let me know in the chat if this all made sense, if this was cool. I just quickly went over that to give you an overview, a crash course into discovering your artist DNA, certain basic principles and points that can help you narrow in. If you're in here and you're struggling with, man, I just don't really know my sound or where I should go, these things will help you kind of navigate through the fog. So take a little swig of my H2O. All right, so let's just jump right into some questions. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and start with some forum questions. So go ahead and fire away with the first question from our forum. And then what I'll do is after that, we'll break into our live Q&A. So this question comes from Brian, and he's asking, how do we establish healthy collaborative relationships? What are red flags to look out for? And is it possible to be commercially successful without worrying about branding or what sells and just be authentic and true to ourselves? Would love to hear your advice on balance of integrity versus selling out. It's a great question, and the latter part of that question kind of answers everything. That's the specific moment when you ask, should we just stop worrying about being commercially successful? Right now, and where we're at in the music industry globally, is that we're finding those who don't care about commercial success are the ones finding commercial success. And what I mean by that is it's the guys and girls who are going out there and be like, I'm just really going to be doing what I love doing because I'm really good at what I'm doing and I do it well. And then they're zoning in on that. They're building a tribe. They're building a fan base. They're understanding their artist DNA. They're building upon that foundation. And then what happens is the fruit of that labor turns into people noticing that and then realizing, wow, we love what you're doing. We want to be a part of that. And then record label starts tapping them on the shoulder and saying, hey, you are achieving success on some level. We want to just pour fuel on the flame. So my advice to you is, and if you're referring to selling out as, well, I'm just going to write pop music because it sells. Well, there's nothing wrong with writing pop music. There's nothing wrong with creating music that has a mass appeal. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's what I do. I produce music, and my role as a producer is to make sure that I'm getting the best product out there, and I want to make hits, right? But I love doing that, and that's what I like doing well. And so if I'm trying to become, the next Tiesto DJ or something like that, then I start to live in that shadow of chasing that because that's where the money's at. And it never does as well as me just being true to what it is that I really love doing. Do that, spend time on that, build the right tribe from that, build the right movement from that, a momentum. Then you start to see the success you become a magnet and you start to attract and pull what you're looking for to you. So definitely keep that in mind. Great question. That was a great question, Brian. Go ahead and shoot me the next question from the forum. Danny asks, what's your approach to reverb and reverb processing? Put it on a return track or adding compression to the reverb, adding saturation, buying third-party reverbs, etc. I see it used in a million different ways every day, and I'm curious to see what you found works best. Well, I go step-by-step in depth in the mixing tutorial, which will be out in a couple of weeks for you guys to check out about that. But to answer your question, yes, there is no right or wrong way to use a reverb. What you have to understand is when it comes to using reverbs in your production is what's the sole purpose of me doing this? For me, I kind of lean more towards delays than reverb. But here's what's cool about reverb. I break it into a couple categories. I use a reverb on an insert if I want that track or that instrument to, for the effect of it sounding farther back in the mix, spacious, and to match the mood of that sound with the rest of the music. So if I have like a rim knock or something or a snap, I would usually put like a reverb on as an insert and dial the dry and wet, because that snap that creates a character for that snap individually, and I can kind of mix that and balance that in the mix overall. When I'm dealing with like vocals and things like that, I tend to use reverbs more on a return track so I can balance the dry and the output of that return track. And sometimes I don't want to affect the what I'm sending of that vocal to other stuff. So if I have a reverb directly on the vocal and I'm sending that to other buses, then what tends to happen is it's also going to be processing the reverb. So give or take, sometimes I'll put reverb on some vocal stuff like vocal chops and things like that. And that adds more atmosphere to the sound as well. So the purpose of a reverb is really to help send and add dimension. I'm using the reverb to place the vocal in an acoustic environment. I want to add depth, not depth, but depth to the vocal. So I use that. And my favorite ones to go to are like the plate reverbs from UAD, and Valhalla makes some really good stuff. But you can get really great mileage just from stock reverbs as well. It's just another thing I like to do is put a compressor after the reverb and have its side chain to the lead vocal so that the vocal is dry and then you hear the reverb after. So that's a cool thing. I talk about that in the course. So that's how I use it. And a whole bunch of reverbs have different styles, different sweet spots to them. So experiment, find the ones you like, and use it to whatever purpose you want. Great question. Let's get the next question. Daniel's asking, what's the processing behind the vocals of Gigi Rose, Give It Away? How did you make them sound so breathy and big without drowning them out? I told her to just sing that way. No, I mean, a big part of Gigi's vocals, and I'm actually using her. There's a song called Got That, Got the Love, that I posted. You guys wanted me to break down. That's the song I chose to mix in this course. And I highlight a lot about getting the character of her voice. She has a breathy tone. She sounds like this all the time. So she's got a high breathy tone, and those can be problematic sometimes because I walk you step by step in dealing with, and I did that on purpose because there was a lot of things I had to do to kind of get that vocal to sit right. But primarily, it comes down to smoothing out a lot of the high end. I do some parallel compression with her vocal to add some thickness back into the vocal take since she is so heavy on the high register. And then once that's done, I use some delay to widen it up. So, and to be honest with you, a lot of that just comes from the natural. Like, it was the right key for her, and that's huge. Like, Give It Away was written at a specific key that just felt and sounded right for that kind of vibe. So that's a big thing. Feel free to change key signatures and work that out so that you know more or less like, oh, this is the sweet spot for that artist. All right, cool. What's the next question? I'll talk about the green cup in a little bit. Leon, that's a good question, but I'm almost so Christian is asking, Ivan, do you use Ableton's Push? If not, why not? If so, would you recommend it and why? And did you find it difficult to learn? And why do you like saving koalas from situations where they're drowning all the time? No, I added that last part, but just wanted to make sure you guys are awake. Well, Christian, as you can see, I have the Push right here. The Push 2, the model. I do like it. It became more of a luxury item for me. I got it because it was cool, and especially now with Live 10, they've completely updated a lot. So now you can visually see the frequency response of the EQs. So this is how I'm actually using the Push. I'm actually using it more as a control surface for mixing than I am for the production side of things. So I feel bad and guilty sometimes. I'm like, well, I have it here. Let me try using it. But man, my workflow has been so quick to on the keyboard to create my beats and my drum programming. And a lot of time when I'm doing drum programming, I'm using the pitch bend a lot. So you can use that here too if you hold shift and things like that. The Push is amazing. And so the way I view it is, if you're coming from a background of button pushing and you're getting tired of, drawing out your beats and step sequencing, then I recommend the Push. I definitely would try it out. See if you have a nearby store that has it so you can test it out, get a feel for it. You can get the same thing from launch pads and things like that. So, if it's more of a luxury item. I would never say it's a make or break scenario that you really need it for it to do production. So what I'll do is I'll do like a little video of me kind of working my way around how I use the Push, and then I'll post that in the forum for you guys. So I hope that helps. All right, let's answer a couple more forums, and then what I'm going to do is give you, after the next couple questions, I'm going to open up the floor for you guys to ask some questions, and that's how we'll wrap up the remaining time of our call, okay? Alan's asking, I'm a trap and bass producer. I'm sorry to hear that, Alan. I really am. No, I'm kidding. My question is, what's the best way to get better at sound design in Serum or Silent, to be more specific? Would you be doing any sound design tutorials? So great question. So I'm going to be doing an interview with a good friend of mine, Will Doggett, who's an amazing sound designer. and he's going to focus in specifically on synthesis sound design and using stock plugins to do it. So I'm going to be doing that interview in a couple of weeks, and that's going to be for you guys to watch, and we'll let you know once that's up and posted. But right away, I guess the best way to practice sound design is all about ear training, and for the most part, that's a big part of mixing as well. But for sound design, what I start to do is just really get familiar with the 4 basic food groups, like your sine wave, your triangle, your sawtooth, and your square, right? Get familiar with those guys. Get to differentiate the two, what the quality and the characteristics are of those 4 basic. And then as you start to really get familiar with that, combining 2 different oscillators with the same ones and what happens when you detune one and the other, you start to notice, oh, I get it. That's what makes sawtooth more special. And then you're going to start to carry that and morph that into a more mature perspective. Like I can get, if I had 4 oscillators, I'll get 2 sawtooth, 1 square, pitches down, do that, add some noise, and get something really cool. So, and then use references. So, Alan, I just thought of a great idea. What do you guys think about me doing something where you guys post a sound? Like let's say you guys, hey, we'll pick a record. Like maybe once a month, we'll pick a record, we'll do a form, we'll pick a sound, and I'll kind of show you how I can best recreate that from scratch. Would you guys be interested in something like that? You can let me know in the chat if that's something. But yeah, so to answer your question, Alan, that's the best way to do it. I've got some sound sign and stuff. Yeah. All right, cool. So then, yeah, what we can do is, it seems like a lot of people are on board with this idea. There's just one person saying no. No, I'm just kidding. All right, if that sounds good, so we'll introduce that concept. If you guys like basically how it'll work out in my head, I'm thinking this out. If he's like, hey, here's this month's song, at the breakdown, there's this crazy sounding thing. And I'll open it up. If you guys have, if you guys have access to knowing how to recreate it, we'll call it like a recreation category or something like that. So, and what I'll do is I'll spend some time and recreating it from scratch as best as possible. Because here's the thing. I'm not trying to give you, here's a preset or just turn this knob here and turn that down. I want to focus on the ear training process of how do you tune your ear to know what that sound is to begin with. And that, I think, is at the heart of the issue. And I think that's what's really important. So I'll do my best to convey that when we do those. All right, guys. Do we have a question from the forum? Rick, where can I find a resource for finding and targeting labels that will accept demos? Also, is it out of bounds to send questions or comments to you directly? If you're a Beat Academy member, since if you're in here, I assume you are. And if you're free, if this is your first time, I would encourage you to stay on board. The reason why is because, yes, you can reach out to me. And when I get the time to do so, I will do my best to answer some of the questions. I am on the forum a lot. I love seeing the energy. I love seeing the vibe of this community. It has really blown me away. Like I go home and I tell my wife and I'm like completely over the moon with how awesome this community is turned out. And so it really is a testament to you guys and how amazing you guys have been. So thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. Seriously. So yeah, you can hit me up, and whenever I can, I'll do my best to reply. And being a part of the community is the best way to reach me and get a hold of me. So, and so if you're asking where's a good resource for finding and targeting labels, it's a little tricky. You could do a couple things. You can go on Hype FM, Hype Machine, right? I think it's Hype FM. Let me just, or Hype, not Hype FM, or Hype and Hype Machine blogs. It's it's Hype M. That's HIPEM.com, and that's HIPEM.com. And what Hype Machine is, it's a collection of blogs, right? So Hype Machine basically is a blog of blogs, right? And what you can do is you can type in there the type of artist. So what I would do is I would find your artist DNA, realize who you are, and what artists are similar to your style of music. Type them in Hype Machine and research and find out where those artists are being promoted on a block front. So if you see that certain blogs are promoting certain type of artists, you can reach out to those blogs. You're better off trying to reach out to the blog curators than the labels themselves, because once you get your stuff on there and moving, the labels would be more inclined to direct their attention to you. It's all, look, labels are just banks. They just want to know that they can invest in something that's already working. So stay the course, build a fan base, rock what you're doing, do it well, and start magnetically attracting those people to you. But a good way you can do that is visit the Hype Machine, visit other blogs, find out where artists that are similar to you are going, and then start moving in direction towards the people who are supporting those artists. And that's what I say. I wouldn't, and you can also do the same thing by finding out the artists' record labels and try to contact them. You know, it's a big world out there, and you might not get responses right away. You might come across somebody that will respond, or maybe somebody might hit you up with the pay to play. I don't know. You just have to stay the course. There is no silver bullet for this. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to provide opportunities, like straight direct from the artists to you guys. That's why I'm posting things like sync opportunities and artists are looking for songs. But if you're trying to put your stuff out, I would actually just recommend you put it out yourself through DistroKid. DistroKid.com, $19 a year. Put your music out there, iTunes, Spotify, get it out and get it moving and build a buzz around that, because you want to get to a point where you don't really need a label because you're building the right momentum. And I'm going to talk a lot more about that in the course that I'm going to start to create about, making a living off your music and the business aspect and how does that all work. So I hope that helps, Rick, if you're here. Do we have any more forum questions? All right, and then we'll jump into you guys with your Q&As. Thank you guys for being so patient. So Christian's asking, how do we prepare a project for a mix? Do we have to convert all MIDI channels to audio? What happens with channels that have already bus effects? Okay, when it comes to getting your tracks prepared for mix. Now, if you're sending it to somebody to mix, the best thing is you just print stems. Leave whatever effects you have on them, because if you take your compressors, your EQs, and all that stuff off and then give it to them raw, essentially what you're asking the mixing engineer to do is, hey, figure it all out yourself, right? The way you think about handing somebody something to mix, a project to mix, is I'm giving you the baton. I've got it to where I feel it's cool, even with all the bus effects and everything. I'm giving you the baton. You take it from here and take it to the next level. That's how you should be treating your sessions when somebody's going to be mixing them. If you're mixing them yourself, just start from where you left off. And that's exactly how I created the mixing course. I assumed that you're creating your own music. So that's where we're going to pick up. I'm going to say, hey, you've got it to where it's at. Now let's figure out when you should be mixing your music in the creative process and how you go about doing that. So there's a lot of cool things I cover in that. So I hope that makes sense. So print with what you have. If you've got MIDI files with channels with audio, if you're mixing it yourself, you don't really need to do that. Maybe you could freeze it. So Christian, you're on here. Okay, great. So what I would recommend, if you need to free up some CPU, just maybe bounce those tracks, create a separate session where you're bouncing the audio. But if you're sending it to somebody else, yes, they all should be audio. All right, great. That's a good question. All right. I think we're gonna open it up to some live Q&A. Oh no, we got one more. Sneaky little ninja. Awesome. Okay. Dave is asking, do you send your tracks out to be mastered, or do you do your own mastering? If so, do you work in Ableton Live while doing that? Also, one more. Do you think it's a good idea to have stems mastered instead of the stereo mix? Because I'm working in a home studio with pretty basic monitors and I don't have good confidence in the finished mix I can attain with my setup. All right, Dave, great question. Once again, full detail in the mixing course, because it's also going to talk about mastering. It's mixing and mastering. So I do this all in Ableton Live. and I separate the mastering process. I don't do mastering in my session when I'm mixing. What I mean by that is I don't have the mastering stuff on the stereo bus. I actually have a stereo bus treatment, something that I do very special and unique to my master output, my stereo bus, but I do not assume to master from there. I bounce what I've got my mix, I open up a brand new session, and I import that, and then I do the mastering in there separately. So that's how I do that. And then we'll talk about, there's also online mastering too that you could check out that I talk about and I show in the course, and I go back and forth with that. But mastering is really, think about washing a car. When you guys have a car or a bicycle or an ostrich, whatever you use whatever you guys are using to get around, but just assume like a car scenario where you're washing the car, that it's been a rough week. The majority of the work is in the washing, the grinding out the dirt from the car, hosing it down, washing it, scrubbing with soap. That's the mixing process. And then when you're done with that, you go on and you just add a coat of wax to give it a nice shimmer and shine. That's the mastering process. If you don't have a good system of cleaning the car, if you didn't do a good job washing the car to begin with, waxing it really doesn't do that much. It just highlights what you left when you washed the car. I hope this is making sense. So that's how you got to treat mixing. Mixing is the bulk of the mastering. And the mastering would just highlight and bring out either the defects or kind of smooth out any of the rough edges. So do you mix? I usually master with the stereo bus. I don't usually master with stems. Some mastering houses will ask to do that. So I do a little bit both. When I work with a major recording artist, the record label, like I just did a record with Tori Kelly. So their management and their label are responsible for having that record mastered. So they would send that out to the mastering engineer and he would do that. But if I'm working on my own stuff or artists that I'm producing and developing or anything I'm releasing, I would just go ahead and master it myself. Great question. All right, where are we at? Could we do some open format Q&A here? All right, so we are opening the floor up live for questions here, guys. So I'll do my best to answer them. So thanks for your patience. So Kawabi is asking, would be happy to hear how to get placements on TV and games, where to start, best ways to submit music. Thank you. Okay, really quick, I'll try to be as quick as possible with this. Here's a good strategy for finding TV placements and things like that. First of all, I'm posting stuff all the time. I'm going to start posting everything I get in the Beat Academy. So if you're a first-time member and you're thinking, I don't know if this is right, and you want opportunities, I'm putting them on there. Stay on board with us. I mean, I just put a sync opportunity the other day that had a $350,000 budget. And so I'm excited to present more opportunities. Second, you can visit websites like Tune. Oh gosh, what was it? TuneFind.com. TuneFind. I'll put it up on the website here in the chat room. Okay. So that's TuneFind. That's TuneFind.com. Okay. So TuneFind is a website that actually tells you every song used on TV shows, films, Hulu, Netflix, and things like that. This is a great gold mine to go through, because then what you can do is you can go on this website, you can find shows, find artists that sound similar to your artist DNA. See, this is why having an artist DNA is so important, because when you realize the lane that you're going to be in, you can go right ahead and find out what other artists sound similar to you, find out shows that have similar artists to you, and start presenting a catalog to those music supervisors that run those shows, and that you can go ahead and send the stuff off to. So I'll go deeper into that down the road when we cover the business stuff, and I'm for the sake of time, I'm just gonna have to do a whole nother video on that. So, all right, what's another question? And we've got a lot of them. All right, so I'll do my best to go through them quickly. Daniel's asking how to redeem the critique song benefit. just email me if you need the song benefit. If you're one of the founding members and you purchased a year, we offered an opportunity to get the personalized critique song benefit. Just go ahead, email illfactor@beatacademy.com, and I'll be more than happy to respond to you that way with your personalized request. All right. What's the next one? Mark is asking, when is the appropriate time to hire a lawyer and seek a publisher? And are both of these essential parts of becoming a professional songwriter? No, they are not essential to becoming a professional songwriter. Professional songwriter is just being a freaking awesome ninja at songwriting, right? But how you handle yourself when communicating and collaborating is where the professionalism comes into play. So you need to seek a publisher when you start to get major placements. So let's say you worked with somebody and you found out that your song is going to be placed on a Selena Gomez and it's going to be the next single and it's going to go huge. It's going to be the next thing. Okay, don't get a publisher yet. But what you can start to is you can start shopping around and be like, hey, I've got a big hit on the radio. I've got something big and smashing, because then the bargaining chips on your side and you could basically ask for a great scenario. But you don't actually even need a publishing deal. I actually would recommend that you don't get one until you're actually willing to sell your catalog. A publishing company is just a bank looking to invest in a catalog that's already making revenue. So, and then a lawyer, I would probably seek legal assistance at the same time when you're ready to enter into a publishing agreement. And as a matter of fact, I'll put some contacts of some great lawyers who are willing to help any of you guys out with stuff like that. But I wouldn't even move towards that unless you start to get towards the goal of placing a major stuff. If you're releasing stuff on your own, don't worry about it. So all right, I hope that makes sense. You can let me know if that cleared it up. What other stuff that we got here, guys? I'm seeing some really good stuff in the chat room, by the way. What project management tools or platform do you use for projects are you working on? Adrian de Barrios, awesome question. I use Trello for my project management. I sucked with efficiency. I was never a good person to handle projects. I never was good at project management. A good friend of mine showed me Trello. That's Trello. And it's a good bird's eye view of how to manage what I'm working on. So I use that, and it's like a whiteboard with individual things. So I use that to project management. What am I working on? You know, when does it due? What stuff I need to have in place? And I can collaborate and send that to people and the artists that I'm working with. And it's easier than going back and forth with emails. But I use Trello for project manage. So it's good stuff. All right, what do we got? Danny's asking, I produce clients' songs. I make versions and send them to the clients. Often they do not go with the first version, so I have to make a couple more. What is the most efficient way of creating a version to send out to the artist for a green light to expand this particular version? Man, Danny, welcome to the business of working with humans. It's crazy. It's more like mind games you have to play. So what I would do is just get a more clear definition of what the artist is looking for, and ask for references. Ask actually for two or at least 3 references. And I know you're probably even doing that already, but let the artist know that, hey, I'm willing to continue working with you. You get 2 recalls, meaning you get 2 revisions for the price of what I'm doing. But submit 2 or 3 references for me, so I know more or less what it is that you're going in, and I'm not veering off too far off. So just narrow the scope, narrow the lens of how far they can go. They're asking for a trap, and if they want trap, and they don't give you, and they're giving you a polka reference, they're just confused. People don't even know what they want most of the time, so you're gonna have to steer the ship yourself. So I hope that makes sense, Danny. All right, let's get another question from you guys over here. Man, you guys are firing away. If I don't get to your question, sorry about that. But hey, there's more monthly calls, and what I would like to do is probably answer some questions that linger. From the aspect of making better music, I noticed that you're able to translate what is in your head to your composition. What would the most efficient way to gain music theory fundamentals? From the aspect of making better music, I notice you're able to translate what is in your head to the composition. Um, Efficient way to gain music theory fundamentals. Man, it depends on the level. If you're getting into music production and you don't have any prior knowledge of music theory, or which is another thing we're going to work on too, so stay on board. But if you have no prior knowledge of music theory, or how, or ear training or things like that, what I would suggest you do is get on the grind, work out using references all the time, and um, just having a reference in place, so that when you're going back and forth with the reference, you're trying to really figure out, where they're going at with the notes and things like that. So that would, if you have no prior knowledge of music theory, it'll just take you longer to get to the acquired goal that you're looking for. But you can do some basic stuff. Just take some basic piano lessons. That'll be a big help into differentiating, getting from what you have in your head out there to the world. So hopefully what I'll do is form, we'll talk about some basic music theory 101 stuff that can help you hit the ground running. Thanks for that, Brandon. I hope that was able to help. Next question. Brandon again. Awesome. What would the top 3 time wasters for a songwriter, recording artist, for example, endless pursuit of plugins versus leaving what we have, or learning plugins, or learning what we have? I think the biggest 3 time wasters for songwriters, producers, and artists is chasing the next big hot thing, both stylistically and even on the technology side, with plugins and things like that. So um, you want to just focus on, you don't want to be a jack of all trades. You want to be a master at your lane. So and I think spending the 5 hours on the snare drum, getting it just right, is a huge time waster. I'd rather you get the focus on what's the most important. So what I would do for you, Brandon, what I would do is I get a list and write the 5 most top, or write what's the priority of songwriting, right? The melody. If the melody is not working, nobody would even care what it is that you have to say, because they're not really drawn to it. The message, the production. So write it down. If melody's first, then home in on what is really important. So I hope that helps. We're going to go fire another question. Excuse me 1 second. I'm just going to grab something here. All right, guys. What's another question that we have here? We got one from Debbie. Can you please send industry opportunities out in email blast like other community news? I don't have the time to check into the community on a daily. Well, sorry about that, Debbie. We'll try to probably create a system, and as new people come on board for to Beat Academy, as we start to see more and more people come in. I'm sorry, don't mean to be rude. We'll probably create a more streamlined system for that. So I'm glad you brought that up, and we'll see how but the community is just the quickest way for me to put that there, and the quickest way for you guys to chime in and post the work, and me to check it out. So then I'd get bombarded with thousands of emails. What's the next question? Just making sure the house isn't burning down. So Daniel's asking, I'm doing all the parts myself, writing, producing, lyrics, singing, editing, vocals, mixing, etc. And it's taking me a long time to finish music. How long should it take? And do you have tips for speeding up the process? Man, first, kudos to doing it all yourself. I just hope that I hope the mantle that you're placing yourself, I hope it's out of necessity. And sometimes it is out of necessity that you are doing everything yourself, just because you probably don't have a community of people around you physically to help or collaborate with. Hopefully the community on Beat Academy will help change that. But I get it. And I think the quickest way to really speed up the process is to let people in the process. 2 are better than 1. And maybe just opening up yourself to being a little bit more vulnerable, and loosening the grip a little bit, and letting others involved. You might see that you probably don't have to do all that much, and you can collaborate with those who have strengths where your weaknesses lie. And that's the most important thing. Wherever you start to see your weaknesses show up, other strengths could cover that up, and you could piggyback off of that. So, but you know, if you're staying the self-made route, I think, you know, as long as the song is good, if you're bumping out like quantity, if you're doing like 17 tracks or 17 songs a day, but they're not all really that great, I'd rather just get one song from you that's like, wow, this is amazing. So if it's taking you that long, and if you're frustrated with the songwriting process, you know, weigh that with the quality of that song that's coming out. And so if you're not really happy with the quality, then I would just suggest that you just go back to that list I mentioned, focus on what's the most the priority of the songwriting process, have that written down, and always go with the game plan. I need to make sure that these three things are covered. And if they're not, I could care less about a great sounding piccolo or whatever. So hope that makes sense, Daniel. Dilla's asking, what is the best way to use a reference track when mixing? I do cover that in the mixing course in great detail, but simply just insert it into the project. Don't let it go out through the same stereo bus as the rest of the mix is going. If you can assign it directly to the output of your interface, that would be great. That way it's not being processed like everything else. And then what you do is you just solo it, A-B it, listen to it for a while, and then cut it into different sections, you know, put the chorus where your chorus is and things like that. That way, and I put it in the same timeline as the arrangement. So I use that back and forth so I can hear more or less, you know, where their vocals compared to mine and things like that. So let's do a lightning round. What do we got? Matt, can you give any advice on how to build a fan base before the marketing course becomes available? I have been doing covers of songs that are in the charts, but I can't seem to increase my fan base. Matt, that's a great question. And I wish there was a silver bullet to directly, you know, there are certain things that you can do. There's certain practices that you can do. There's certain, you know, hacks and things that you can do to best utilize and build a fan base. One thing I would do is if you're doing covers, that's a great move. My question is, how relevant are the covers? How consistent are you in putting them out? And where is it that you're putting it out? And if you go back to what I mentioned earlier about the artist DNA, if you start and then you build the fan avatar, where are your dream fans hanging out? And then you want to go and meet them there. If the majority of your dream fans are using Snapchat to communicate, then that's where you need to build your bubble, right? And if they're on YouTube, that's where you need to build your bubble. And don't assume that everybody's living where you're at. And don't assume, oh, all my fans are on Instagram. And once you do that and you got a taste of where your fans are and what artists they're also listening to, you can put small budgets together and do some advertisement on Facebook to just increase the fan base off of that. And what you're doing there is you're just clearing the road for them to get to you. And once you've got them there, you can easily just talk to them. Use your music as a bridge for them to walk over. And once they've walked over with being a fan of the music, they're not a fan of just the music. They want to be a fan of who you are as an artist. So that's the thing. All right, guys. One more question. Not one more question. Let's do another question. And we'll do a couple more questions before we wrap up the call. These are great questions, by the way. Man, I need some more. It's just water, by the way. And this is just the reason why I have this cup is because it's big and it was clean. Pauline is asking, singer-songwriter here. Awesome, Pauline. Sapphire Pro 40, APC 40, Ableton user. When I'm tracking both vocal and guitar, the guitar is never loud enough on the headphones because the voice is definitely louder in my head. I know tracking them separately would be a solution, but I'm not doing a live video. But if I'm doing a live video, this doesn't work. Pauline, okay, let me just see if I get this clearly. So you're trying to record you singing and playing at the same time, and that's for covers or live video purposes. I assume that's what it is. If that's what it is, I would do. What you might want to try doing is just tracking the guitar first and overdubbing with the vocal. And then for live purposes, if you're going to do it live, you've already got the guitar in place tracked and just kind of sing it live, you know, kind of like overdub the vocal take if you can. And then that's what you can broadcast live. You could still play it, but they're going to be hearing the guitar that's already been pre-recorded and things like that. So that's one way to do it. I'm just technically trying to find out exactly what it is. Maybe what you can do is just hit me up in the community, and I can get more details as to what it is you're trying to set up, and maybe point you in the right direction. If anybody else is doing what she's doing in the community, if you guys are also recording your stuff live, maybe you can help her out as well. So um, I hope that makes sense. Next question. Kenneth is asking, when mixing a 2-track beat, how do I make the bass pump through the headphones like a pro track? Is it done in the mix or in the master? I mostly agree it's done in the mix. And I talk about getting that good low end balance, the kick and balance in the mixing course. So I'm excited for you to check that out in the next couple of weeks. So you want to basically be able to have the kick. First of all, if you're mixing this in headphones, if you're using a reference in your headphones, that's going to be game changer for you. Check the bass on the reference and say, okay, I'm listening to the bass in the reference track. I'm hearing the bass in my track. It's a little bit too low. I need to bring it up. I don't get too crazy with, you got to carve the low end off the kick. And yes, you can do that. And you should do that in certain times when you're getting surgical. But for the most part, you want to make sure that there's a trick I use. I use a VU meter. And I use this trick on the VU meter. I make sure that the kick hits about 3 on an analog VU meter. And then once I introduce the bass, I want to make sure that the meter hits 0 dB. So I go into great detail about that in the course, but that's a great way to help make sure that the low end is at a good place, and the balance between the kick low end and the bass low end are sitting well. So keep going back and forth through a reference mix in your headphones and see if they're singing. Oh, Pauline's asking if the guitar is going direct. Well, yeah, I would agree. Then just use an input loudness knob on your interface mic. Yeah, just balance out the input of your knob on the guitar. Sorry about that. All right, so next question. Scott Youngberg, panning. I'm a newbie and working solely in the box. My style so far is more fun electronic vibe. My question is, what are some good panning techniques for percentage automation, timing, etc.? Thanks. Keep the faith, brother. You too, Scott. Thanks for being a part of Beat Academy. All right, panning, as you guys probably seen in the forum, there's 2 schools of thought. You should only pan left, center, and in the middle, and everything in between. I've done both. I've done sessions where I just pan hard left, hard right. And I usually pan hard left, hard right when it comes to double vocals or background vocals. I want them to be really creating a nice white imaging. Then there's times where I don't necessarily need to pan an item in the mix fully hard right or fully hard left. Here's the way I go about doing that. When you pan something, here's what you need to keep in mind. Panning is used for the purpose of creating space for the person in the middle. Think of a wedding. I know this is going to be weird, but think of a wedding, okay? In the wedding, you have the bride coming down the aisle, and you've got the family on the left-hand side. You got the other people on the right side. If there are too many people in the aisle, if there's a lot of people walking in the aisle, the bride is going to have an issue going down the aisle, and the groom waiting for the bride is going to have, it's going to have to like go like this to really get a nice, clear view of the beautiful bride. So what you want to do is you want to clear the middle away for what's important, stuff like the kick, the bass, the lead vocal. So let them come down the aisle, and you can create space for other items that, okay, I'm going to let them sit here. I'm going to let this guy sit here. So the vocal's still clear. But when I pan this item, consider that now it has its own space. It's got its own position in the mix. And so sometimes just if you don't hear something in the mix, it's like, man, I don't want to turn this item or this cowbell up a couple dBs because it would just be too loud. Consider just panning. And if you pan it, you're giving it its own home. And now you can even probably bring it down because it's the only guy living in that pot. So I hope that makes sense, guys. Does that make sense, Scott? You can let me know in the chat room if that makes any sense whatsoever. I don't know if the wedding analogy made any sense, but that just kind of came to me, and I think I even used it in the tutorial. That's probably why I came back. So let me know if that makes sense. Think of a beautiful marriage. the guy waiting for the bride, and you want the middle clear of what's important. All right, Daniel. All right, guys. So what we'll do is we're gonna open it for just 3 more questions after this, and then we'll start to wrap up the call. All right. Daniel's asking, I'm doing all the I think we answered this one, so I'm gonna put this aside. Scott says, I love weddings. Oh, that's awesome, Scott. I'm glad that worked. Christian's the bride analogy. Rick is asking, is it okay to mix as you go while creating? Should you wait and leave it sounding raw until the song is complete? Amazing question, Rick. Great question. I'm from the school of mix as you go, but I never let mix as you go trump writing. First of all, my priority is this: write a great melody, write a great song. Right? Get that down. I could put a basic snare, a basic patch, and work off and get the idea. Once I got that down, I don't mind tweaking a couple things to shape the sound and the tone of that. Like maybe I've got a cool patch, but maybe when I put the reverb and delay on it, that's what really inspires me to write that certain chord progression. Okay, that's cool. And so you can do those kind of things. I think mixing as you go is more towards sound design, like shaping the tone of certain instruments, drums, and things like that. All right. And then what you do is when you've gotten the song down, you've gotten your arrangement in place, hit the mixing mindset. Start going, okay, now let me start creating dimension and space. Sometimes when I have an artist tracking vocals, I'm kind of like tweaking certain things in my mind already, adding a little distortion or whatever. But that is for the purpose of like, man, that string sample sounds danky. I want to put a distortion thing on it and make it sound cool. And that will bring an element like, wow, that's a cool thing. And that becomes a thing now, like a main riff or something. And then mixing is balance. So you create, while you're creating, you get everything sounding you get it sounding like the way you like it. And then mixing, the sole purpose of mixing is for balance. That's it. Mixing is when you're ready to get everything you've got on board sitting in a good balance with each other. That's what it is. When you're ready for that stage, then you can put your mixing cap on and start going. So I'm really excited for you guys to check out this course because that's what I'm aiming. That's more or less the foundation. I treated this course as I just finished working on something. How do I mix it? And how do I cross that line between production and mixing? Great question. All right, guys, let's do one more and then we'll close it out. Colin Diaz. Hi, Ivan. Colin from Goa here. A question about copyrights ad collaboration. How do I go about if I do all by myself, such as composing lyrics, music production, and then collaborating with a singer/artist, such as copyrights and remuneration to the artist? Okay. If within the writing process, you wrote the song, you produced it, you made the beat, you wrote the bass line, you tracked the giraffe mating call that's in the background, and if you did everything and you're just simply having an artist sing your song, then you have the right to tell that artist, hey, I'm keeping all the publishing for this. Now, if there's any involvement, and this is upon your own conscience, if there's any involvement with an artist or another songwriter in if there's any partaking in the creative process, like, hey, I was in there, I helped you, write it and work on it. It's up to you to work out and have that discussion with that person and say, yes, we both collaborated, but I brought the majority of the beef to the table. Would you feel comfortable with a 70-30 split? And that's a negotiation you should have. But if you're writing everything yourself and you're just having an artist featured on there, basically you treat it as like almost a work for hire. Now it's up to you to decide how you're going to pay that artist for their time, if the artist is asking you to do that. If they're not, and they're just looking just to ride your coattails, then you're basically collecting the royalties, and they're just being featured. They're getting the feature. Now, if they're an artist, there's such thing as artist royalties, but that gets a little bit complicated, and that's when that artist is being represented by a record label. If a record label owns the artist, meaning that they have them under a contract, the record label will ask for artist royalties that will be made on specific sales or touring and things like that. So that's a little bit down the line. But when it comes to writing and publishing, you want to make sure that you you visit a website called songsplits.com. That is songsplits.com. I think I mentioned it last time in our Q&A. SONGSPLITS.com. And once you visit that, register, it's free. And then that's an online way to interact with other people and make sure that the both of you agree on the split percentages that you guys are working on. Once you have an agreement, you can submit that, with your BMI or your PRO, your ASCAP or BMI. And then you could even now in DistroKid, as you self-distribute your songs, you can actually, there's a station there where you can say, hey, I wrote this with so-and-so, split the revenue by 30 or 40%, however. So I hope that makes sense. I would recommend that you have that conversation. Don't wait till it gets weird. If you're getting stuff placed on placements, so let's say I put an opportunity, let's say, Walmart needs music for their commercial. You send me something, you wrote it 100% yourself, and they're like, yeah, we want to use this. This is great. Usually those kind of clients want an all-in exclusive, meaning they want to work with people who don't have publishing deals, who don't have all these things in place, because that means more red tape to cost. So they'll say, we'll pay you, $100K or $75,000. You keep, you split the money amongst whoever partook in the writing aspect or the publishing. So if you and I wrote the song, then we would talk about how we're going to split that income. So I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. Well, guys, this was a really amazing Q&A. And I have to say, thanks, guys. I want to thank my team for helping me moderate and comb through. I really wanted to make sure this time that I was able to get to a lot of the questions. So really excited about the way this went. You guys, is this still cool? I mean, are you guys, let me know in the chat if these Q&A calls are, because I only hear myself and I'm rambling. So let me know if these calls are really helpful and beneficial for you guys. You can let me know in the chat room. Scott's asking if there are any tips for saving a Ninja Panda that is drowning. Yes. You simply just have to just let them go. You're just going to have to let it go. Ninja Pandas are very self-sufficient. So, ramble more, please, Brian says. Ramble on. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. Thank you. It's really humbling to see that these things are really helping them out. The starving giraffe, I promise no animals are hurt during these live calls. I think, Derek, if you're asking about browsers, you could check out Chrome. I think Chrome works for great. I'm using Chrome. I hope that is, and just make sure that you have a good internet connection and that you're not like streaming, Twitch TV or something like that. So, well, guys, thank you so much for being a part of this. I had to do a lot of rearranging schedules so we could do it on a Saturday. I know a lot of you guys aren't able to attend some of the weekday ones. So we will be posting future live calls in the forum. So please check the forums on the category for live calls. We will let you know when the next one's available, and you guys get to vote on the date that best suits you. All right. So guys, thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of Beat Academy. I'm excited. Who's excited for what's happening? We've got the mixing course literally a couple weeks away. We've got some amazing, talented, big time producers, not going to say anything or give any names. Big producers about to share how they created some amazing music. Or here's a little hint: Justin Timberlake, Bjork, MIA. But anyways, we'll talk about that later. They're going to shed some light on how they walk through some of their music. They're going to do a breakdown for us. It's going to be featured in an upcoming breakdown video. We've got some music business stuff coming up, how to actually make a living from the music that you're creating, some marketing strategies for you guys. So really, really, really cool. And yes, by the way, guys, there will be a replay of this live call, so you can always go back and take notes from what we were doing. All right. So really excited. Stay on board with us. So many great things coming up for Beat Academy. And if it's your first time here, I want to say welcome. Thank you for being a part member. As you can see, I hope you're enjoying yourself. Stick around. I want to encourage you, and I want to challenge you to really take advantage of what's going on here. There's a lot of stuff that we're going to be doing, so it's yours for the taking. Thank you guys so much for being amazing, and I'll see you next call. Take care.